Hey, it's Efruz, and welcome to my first video review. Unless you're a mechanical keyboard enthusiast who has spent a lot of time exploring your options and learning about the capabilities and maximum potential customization of mechanical keyboards, you probably haven't heard of DEC. They're a company based in Kenosha, Wisconsin, so their keyboards are designed in the US, with manufacturing being done in China. However, don't let made in China fool you. Aside from the joke behind that phrase being untrue nowadays, DEC brings with its Francium Pro 10 keyless keyboard an excellent build, quality materials, and a unique approach to its features. But, as of the publishing of this video, at $134 on mechanicalkeyboards.com, $149 for the full-size 108-key Francium Pro, which you may have already guessed if you know the periodic table of elements, can it do what it does well enough to be a superior purchase to its competition? Let's find out. Now, to provide context, my experience with mechanical keyboards includes the Razer Black Widow Tournament Stealth 2014 with Razer orange switches, the Corsair K70 with Cherry MX red switches, and the Logitech G710 Plus with Cherry MX brown switches. I may refer to any of these three keyboards during this review as they are the ones that I have the most amount of experience with. This Francium Pro is the Cherry MX brown version, switches that have virtually no audible feedback, but a tangible, tactile feedback on actuation. You can buy these keyboards with Cherry MX blue, brown, or red switches, and a blue or white LED option for each switch. It'd be cool if this keyboard had a no LED option, with separate LED indicators, perhaps above the directional keys, for the sake of maintaining some features this keyboard has. More on that later. I've never really cared for LEDs on a keyboard, as at night I prefer to have a light on anyway so my monitor doesn't damage my eyes. Even with flux on, monitors can get pretty annoying. Let's start with the unboxing experience. The box for my keyboard came wrapped in over 10 feet of bubble wrap, covering all 360 degrees of the box, with 2 bubble wrap bags to put the sides of the box in. I'm not sure why they would wrap the box in bubble wrap, as the focus is getting the keyboard out and using that for hours, instead of spending those hours popping away at the bubble wrap. Jokes aside, the amount of bubble wrap made me think the box would be bigger, which is a good sign of how secure the keyboard felt in the packaging in the proportionately sized box. In the box, you'll not find much. The keyboard in a bag that feels like styrofoam, looks like styrofoam, but I don't know if it is. A user manual, and in the compartment where the cable rests, a metal keycap puller that could also open bottle caps on the other side, which is neat. However, I've read online that the metal keycap puller scratches the keycaps, so I haven't used it at all out of fear, and I've been using the keycap puller that came with my Corsair K70 instead. When removing the keycaps, I ran into some very mild issues with my K70 keycap puller not fitting in some of the keys that borderline chassis on the left or right side, but I was still able to remove the keycaps with no damage. It doesn't look like DEC's keycap puller would do this, nor would the wire keycap pullers, as they are both thinner, but I thought I'd point it out. Looking at the keyboard, you'll see a standard layout on the top, and underneath you see rubberized feet and raised feet that do not have rubber bottoms. It would have been nice to see this. You also see cable routing areas so the cord can come out on the left or right sides of the keyboard. The cord is braided, as expected, is long enough and is stiff yet easy to bend and remove kinks from, which is nice. The build quality of this keyboard is amazing. There is very little flex, less than any of the keyboards I've used, or even the bottom half of my laptop, but more importantly I hear absolutely no creaking from the keyboard and the very little amount of flex this keyboard exhibits when I try to bend it. The fact that you can't even hear weakness in the keyboard is very comforting. After flexing, there are no issues with uneven leg heights, so there is no rocking with this keyboard. I actually experienced this a little bit on my Black Widow Tournament Stealth when it wasn't on top of the Goliath extended I owned, so I thought I'd point that out. The keycaps are double-shot backlit PBT keycaps, and the chassis itself has a PBT plastic construction. And I must say, despite never using PBT keycaps before, I totally understand now how PBT lives up to the legends I've read on the internet with how good it feels. Using this keyboard for a week, I don't feel or see any difference between keys I use and a lot of keys that I almost never use, while my K70's keycaps have a very definitive line of exposure to skin oils. The LEDs on this keyboard are rated at 200,000 hours, due to the light being drove at 5.25 milliamps, which is below the rated 20 milliamp current. The keycaps don't let a ton of light out. You can hardly see them during the daytime if you let light in your room, but I've heard the blue LEDs look even dimmer. I'm not bothered by the amount of light that makes it through the keycaps. It's more than enough at night, and it even appropriately accentuates the exotic font used on this keyboard. I wouldn't call the font an objective flaw. The font is consistent in style between each legend, but I can definitely understand why people wouldn't like it and may find it unfitting for a work environment. Deck has told me that their future models will not use this font due to generally negative feedback. The font doesn't bother me a whole lot at home though. At least the keyboard isn't loaded with keycaps that have legends that look exactly the same. On a side note, for some odd reason, the E, U, and I keys on my specific keyboard seem lowered compared to the rest of the keycaps in this row, but I do not feel it at all, even swiping my fingers over the keys. Also, when I had O-rings on this keyboard, there was no difference in the height of the keycaps. Another thing I particularly like about this keyboard is how amazing the spacebar sounds. And with that, I'll commence some sound tests, with and without O-rings. Remember, these are PCB mounted Cherry MX Brown switches. Going into the specs and features of this keyboard, the function key is the gate to pretty much everything this keyboard can do. There are media keys on the F1 through F6 buttons, a calculator executor on F7, which I don't find too necessary, a Windows key lock on F8, lighting effect modes on F9, and a lightning bolt on F10. Unfortunately, you do not acquire the powers of Thor, Zeus, Harry Potter, Zareth, or Static Shock by pressing FN plus F10. However, you can toggle 6-key rollover when the LED is off, and N-key rollover indicated by the light being on. It is nice to see keyboards that are capable of N-key rollover over USB and not just PS2, and I hope this becomes more standardized among mechanical keyboards, as even some gaming-oriented ones with macros, like the G710 Plus, do not have this feature. Despite the keyboard not being advertised or heavily marketed as a gaming keyboard, it does have a feature many gamers and even developers would like: software-free macro recording and programming. This can be activated by holding function and the PN key, which is in place of the F12 key. More on that later. Afterwards, the key in which you want to input a macro is the first key you press. So here I press A first to indicate that that will be the key that activates the macro. Then any keys that come after the first key you press will be part of the macro. So here I press 1 through 0 to indicate that when I press A, every number of 1 through 0 will output. Finish the individual macro by pressing the PN key again, in which case you can begin an entirely new macro, and press function plus PN to completely exit macro recording mode. You can also input delays between the key inputs with a macro by pressing function plus insert for 15 milliseconds, function plus home for 100 milliseconds, and function plus page up for 500 milliseconds. You can activate a save macro by holding PN and the key the macro is saved on, or by toggling the macro layer instead of the standard layer by pressing the double arrow key next to the PN key. In use, I find this macro recording system to be a spectacular design choice. Much faster configuration than macros through software like on the Logitech G710 Plus or Razer Black Widow, which I thought was kind of surprising. After one successful use of a macro, I immediately preferred this implementation of macro input, and I love using it in grindy MMOs where ping is hard to work with without spamming skills, and even then you have 8+ skills, so I can just hold a key instead. Call me lazy if you want, but it can make some games that aren't fun to me much more fun. However, there is a flaw with the way the macro keys are laid out on the keyboard. The F11 key is activated by pressing function plus the double arrow key, and F12 has been moved to FN plus escape, since function plus PN is required for macro recording. This doesn't bother me a lot because I don't use F11 and F12 a whole lot, but this can be a huge annoyance for anyone who does, since this is not a standardized configuration for even an alternative layout where keys have tons of additional function. So if you were looking for third-party keycaps where you don't need to remember these legends, you're kinda screwed. And because of that, this also limits keycap customization in my opinion, since I feel the legends are very critical in understanding what modes your keyboard is in, and the lack of ability to truly customize keycaps in this regard makes the keyboard in conjunction with the font increasingly inappropriate for work. There are no backlit blank keycaps, but if you don't mind the light shining through blank keycaps and you can remember all the legends on this keyboard, then go for it. This wouldn't be a problem at all with the full-size Francium Pro, and I have been informed that their 10 keyless version will not have this layout in their future models. It'll have a standard layout. Personally, my idea would be to see F11 and the double arrow key switch roles in terms of the use with the function key, and I would like to see F12 be in its normal position, with function F12 activating macro recording mode and function escape finishing individual macros. Another idea I would like to see is a dedicated LED indicator for macro recording, macro layer toggle, key rollover toggle, caps lock, and scroll lock. That way any LED backlight customizations can spread on every key on the keyboard. On a quantitative level, this seems like a large list of critical flaws with the keyboard, and that is definitely true for a lot of users, particularly developers, but I'm not bothered by this much since, like I said, I don't use F11 and F12 for almost anything. Continuing on about features, this keyboard comes with 5 lighting options: laser beam, ripple, breathing, static with 8 levels of LED brightness, and reactive. Additionally, you can install LED scripts with a script installer from their website. I'll have a link to that in the video description. This script installer can install custom-made lighting effects activated by pressing function +1 through 0, so there are 10 LED script hotkeys that layer under the included lighting options. Though, in order for all the LED scripts to work, some lighting effects, such as static, will be cancelled out so you can actually see the effect occur. I haven't found a way to disable LED scripts you install, aside from unplugging and replugging the keyboard, or installing an LED script on the same hotkey, which would require you to leave the software open, which isn't necessary for functioning the LED script. I would like to see a way to disable LED scripts, and if there is one, then leave it in the comments. You can code your own LED script, which you need to go on DEC's website to download the manual that explains how you do that. The software can also allow people to install different key maps. I know Dvorak and Colmac are publicly available key maps, but I don't know about any others. So in conclusion, this keyboard is definitely awesome. Like I said, it has an excellent build quality, is made out of excellent materials, and has an excellent feature set that all work together in an excellent way. If the design choices with the font and F-key layout don't bother you, I would highly recommend this keyboard, and I would have a hard time believing any other 10 keyless thrown at me would best this one. You're getting an incredible value, considering most mechanical keyboards of the DEC Francium Pro's build cost the same, and they don't come with PPT keycaps, they don't come with programmability, let alone in this form, and pretty much anything only comes with just lighting effects. Now, if you want to talk about an objectively perfect keyboard, I can make a whole other video about that. Thanks for watching my DEC Francium Pro review. Special thanks to Hebona for providing me with music to use in my videos. I'll have a link to his social media, his Bandcamp, and his SoundCloud in the video description. Don't forget to like, dislike, and comment as you see fit for feedback. Share if you want to support me with some exposure, and subscribe if you want to see me make more reviews and other various videos. Thank you.